What's up, guys? Thanks as always for supporting the show. It would mean a lot to me if you would take a second to scroll down and hit that subscribe button so you don't miss any more of our videos. Also, make sure you follow us all over social media so you don't miss any of our content or show announcements. I'm going to get Synergy up. Jackson, you want to pull a question from the chat?
Yeah. Well, everyone, feel free to drop your question in the chat. There were a few that I had written down from the YouTube stream that we can start with. First
Perfect.
question is, when should we start giving Russell Westbrook some credit?
I feel like we've been giving Russ some credit this season over the course of the season, while also acknowledging the obvious shortcomings that are there. The big thing with Russ that I think has kind of flipped the dynamic into something that is more tenable for him in the big picture is, it used to be that like you guys heard his press conference, right? He talks about how
so funny.
he talks about how he's like, a force of nature, and that naturally comes with certain, mistakes and things along those lines. And, obviously there's great self-awareness there, but that is the Russell Westbrook experience, is he makes good plays and he makes bad plays. And the biggest difference, the thing that's changed, is it used to be that he was like a god-awful catch and shoot player who also like couldn't finish at the rim to save his life. And the two things that have changed is Nikola Jokic, through his inverted spacing, which all that means is he pulls the center away from the basket, which makes it so that there's one less tree underneath the basket, who's typically the biggest player on the other team. It just kind of causes less congestion underneath the basket. So he's been more effective as a cutter in those situations, as a finisher.
Mm-hmm.
And then the second piece of it is he's put in the work. He's made himself a useful catch and shoot player. And so all of a sudden, it used to be like a huge part of his issue was he would stack up bad plays in the form of him taking and missing catch and shoot threes, and taking and like Lakers fans will remember a whole lot of off the dribble mid-range jump shots that he would try to bank in, and many times would like miss the backboard entirely. Like there were some ugly moments in that regard. So as he's cut all of that fat out, all the good is still there. It's just being counterbalanced by less bad, and he's become a very positive player in a way that he didn't used to be. I want to quick pull up this his shooting numbers from this postseason, because I bet you they're like off the charts good. Yeah, Russell Westbrook jump shot in this postseason off the catch, he's been shooting 40%.
There you go.
He's getting 1.2 points per shot. He's 0 for 5 when he's guarded. When he's unguarded, standing still, 12 for 25, 48%, 1.44 points per shot. That's going to swing his impact in a big way.
Professional basketball player. I mean, it really, like, I can't even remember the last time I saw him take one of those off the dribble elbow pull-ups, which was such a big part of his shot diet for the entirety of his career until like 18 months ago, it feels like.
He did take one today. He took a little one leg fadeaway out of the post. And it was like, I remember when he took it, I was like, well, but like if you were watching the game at that point, like he was kind of in a good groove, and Jamal was struggling, Michael Porter was struggling. Like they like Adelman even tried straw there for a little bit in that first half. So like you could literally see Russ kind of in the situation being like, I am confident, I need to take a shot. But that is so rare for him. Like he just doesn't take that shot very often, and that's what kind of allows him to avoid some of those bad spells.
Yeah, I didn't really think going in this was going to be a good series for him, because it feels like he's very, more so than the rest of his earlier parts of his career, is super dependent on physical athletic mismatches, which is why he was torturing some of the Clippers guys. And he doesn't have as many of those in this series, but he was fantastic tonight. Absolutely fantastic.
Here's a stat for you guys. All season, including the playoffs, he's taken 104 jump shots inside the 3-point line. His full season with the Lakers, he took 275.
Oh my
so like
God.
he's cut his mid-range volume into like to a third of what it was.
That is absolutely insane. Let's do, because there's a lot of JDub talk. Is JDub the XFactor for OKC this series? He, didn't have his best game tonight. What's your take on the JDub experience? He didn't have a great postseason last year either.
He's young. He's young, and like the specific dynamic that Denver puts on the table is they test you in your decision making in the middle of the floor. And so if you attack that by just getting into the teeth of the defense and taking difficult shots, like remember, if we go back to the Dallas series, guys, this was literally where it went south for them, was like guys like JDub just making poor decisions when they would get in close to the basket. And like ultimately there's so much of a decision making and processing piece when it gets into the postseason. Yeah, 5 for 20 from the field. Good God. It's a rough one. I will, while you're pulling the next question, I'm going to look over some of these clips and see if there's an interesting one in here that we can pull out.
Yeah,
So
for the next thing, people want to know a lot about the late game stuff from the Thunder, both offensively. We have a why do you think the Thunder offense fell apart late in the game question, as well as something we talked about on the YouTube show for anyone who missed it. But what was your take on the the fouling and the early fouling, slightly early fouling from Dejanald and the Thunder at the end of the game?
Okay, so guys, here in like 10, 15 minutes, Jackson's going to hop off and we will watch more film. And I promise we will look at the late game off. We'll look late game offense, Thunder. We'll look some JDub stuff. We'll look at some Boston offense. I just want to focus more on the because it's always just so much easier to get into those details when we can actually pour over the film versus watching live. When you're watching live, there's so many moving parts. You're emotional as a fan in the moment, like that. Yeah, in a lot of ways, like I thought the game was over. Like they're up 14. I'm writing my notes. I'm like, this is an encouraging night for Denver. Like there's some stuff they can take forward. And Oklahoma City, man, they threw a great punch. Next thing you know, I'm looking at the screen. I'm like, Aaron Gordon's shooting something to win the game here. So like we will dig further into that. I talked a little bit about this on the YouTube live, but as it pertains or as it relates to the late game kind of like timeout foul situation, like there is a prevailing ideology that's based on analytics that you foul when you're up 3 in those situations. And I've just seen so many examples of fans and media and of just being critical of coaches for not fouling in those situations. And it's one of those things where like no matter what you do, there's a risk. If you don't foul up 3 late, there's a risk that someone could make a shot and tie the game and send it to overtime. If you do foul up 3 late, there's a chance that you might miss a couple free throws after they make theirs, and suddenly they have the ball down 1 with a chance to win the game. Like, that's the risk that you take in those situations. And like, yeah, okay, so like, let's say for instance, on that final possession when Jokic is on the sideline. So absolute catastrophe strikes. The Nuggets do not get matched up on the sideline out of bounds. They lose track of Shea. Shea gets a dunk. Okay. So Shea gets a dunk, puts the Thunder up by 3. They inbound the ball. I want to say there was, how much time was left? Like around 10 seconds at that point.
Yeah.
So there's around 10 seconds left. Like, what if Denver dribbles the ball up the floor and you don't foul and Jamal Murray hits a 3 and sends it to OT? Then everyone is losing their minds about how you didn't foul up 3 in that situation. So like, it's just it's the same way I feel about the JJ Redick playing his guys 24 straight minutes to end the second half of that Nuggets or that Timberwolves game. Like ultimately, I hate playing the results in these situations when everyone would just call the guy a genius if it went the other way. Chet makes his free throws, it's a non-issue. Chet makes his free throws, it's a non-issue. That's the game.
Let's do a Celtics question. Jason, why does Tatum refuse to post up Brunson or whatever small on switches and just attack them like Jokic does? I know he isn't as big as Jokic, but the amount of easy looks they got when he drives is mind-boggling. A lot of Celtics shot selection questions across the board.
Yeah, so we talked a lot about this, and you guys will see it on the film when we get into it, but I've already watched this film, so I can actually give a take at this point. The one of the things that I noticed on film, and this actually dates back, if you guys remember, to the Miami Heat series back when they lost in Game 7 back in 2023. When Tatum and Jaylen Brown ISO at the top of the key, the Celtics deploy their 5-out spacing principles. And often in those situations, they will have like all 5 perimeter spots occupied. And when they do that, it shrinks the gaps around them. A very simple way to look at it is like if you imagine like the key, if I distribute 2 on the wings, 2 in the corners, there's pretty large gaps between the spots, right? But if we space out 5 guys and there's a guy at the top of the key and there's 2 guys on the wings and there's 2 guys in the corners, the gaps shrink, by roughly 20% or whatever the math is there, right? So in those situations, it makes it a lot easier for you to gap and recover, meaning like OG Anunoby and Mikal Bridges can sit down in those driving lanes while also being in a position where they can close out to the 3-point line. If you guys remember in Game 6 of that Heat Celtics series in 2023, one of the ways that the C's got going was by clearing the side. Now, there's ups and downs to that, right? When you clear the side, it creates a different spacing conundrum on the weak side of the floor. When you clear the side, suddenly it puts you in a position defensively where you can guard 2 guys with 1 and at least give yourself a chance to rotate out of it. But by clearing the side, you make it much easier to back your defender down. Like the one of the things you saw, I mean, even Jokic struggled with this tonight. When you back down in the middle of the floor, it's really hard when you turn your back to see a guy like jumping in from behind to get a steal. We even saw an example of that tonight where I think it was Jaylen Brown drove to the left down on Cat, and OG stunted at him from behind, and Jaylen turned to throw a pass and just didn't even see OG there, and OG got a steal, and they went out the other way. And so one of the things that they can do to try to at least make it a simplified decision-making process is to clear the side. They did that in Game 6 of that Heat series. Tatum got going. That was a big part of how they get themselves out from settling, because when you settle, when you have all that kinds of space, that's on the player. Those kind of like shortened gaps that you see in their 5-out spacing up top, I thought Tatum and Brown both got trapped where it almost looked like they didn't feel comfortable driving either way without running into help and having problems. And I think that kind of goes a long way towards that sort of settling.
Yeah, I think so too. And I think the increased physicality they're allowing this postseason run works against the Celtics. Their two stars being guys who, not as much last year in their championship run, but in the finals against the Warriors, showed real challenges at times, not every time, but at times, getting people's hands on the ball while they're trying to drive and having and with physicality sort of struggling and turning the ball over too many times, which they definitely did in the second half tonight. So I do think that's probably a factor as well. The one thing I do want to say as a Celtics fan myself is that there's a lot of people saying Jason Tatum took 15 threes. What is he doing? And I do think that he and Jaylen Brown both settled too often tonight. But you can't just look at the number of threes that he attempts. Okay. I looked it up because I was curious. How many times Jason Tatum attempted, not 15, but 11 or more threes this season, regular season? 27 times, a lot of times. They went 23-4 in those games, okay? 23-4. Was the process bad tonight? It could have been better, especially in the second half, definitely. But it's not as simple as when Jason Tatum jacks up threes, their offense isn't good. It's not quite that simple.
I totally agree with you. Like, to me, it's about identifying how the game is flowing. Like we see this with all the great players. Like, you attack in different ways. Like if you watch Jokic, there'll be games where he's like, oh, this isn't really a post-up matchup for me. I'm going to run a bunch of inverted ball screens and two-man game at the top of the key. Or like LeBron over the years, late in series would be like, okay, this is where I'm really going to start to leverage myself in the post. We see Steph go from off-ball kind of like, run around guy. He'll shift into more of like I'm going to spam high ball screens like he did in the third quarter of the Game 7 against the Rockets. And my thing is like, I'm with you, Jackson. Like there's a type of game where Tatum taking a pull-up three is a great shot.
Yeah.
And like it actually kind of felt like that a little bit
in the
third quarter, because like there was a stretch there where the Knicks actually made multiple attempts to try to make a run. And there was one of them in the third quarter that Tatum stymied by hitting back-to-back threes at the top of the key. And my issue with it is in that fourth quarter stretch in particular, he was clearly off. Like, it was clearly off. Like, he wasn't close and just barely missing. He was badly missing. And he just kept going to that shot. And like, one of the things that you'll anybody who's played the game, Jackson, you play a lot of basketball too. Any of you guys who have played basketball to any extensive degree know that like shooting is about rhythm. And sometimes when you get out of rhythm, sometimes it's like that game isn't the game for you to fix it. Sometimes you need to go in the gym tomorrow and work on your shot and then try again in the next game. So like, it's very difficult on the fly in a basketball game to just like fix what you're doing. In a lot of cases, you'll end up just trying to force your head through a brick wall and making more mistakes and taking more bad shots. And so I think that was my beef with it. I'm 100% with you. Like, the Celtics have won a lot of games playing the same way they did tonight.
Right.
They just didn't go away from it when it wasn't working. And there were some examples like in the clutch, big possessions where guys took stupid shots. It's like straight up stupid shots. Like Drew Holiday. Like, for such a smart player, he's such a smart player.
Yeah, I know.
But dating back even to Bucks fans will tell you he did that shit. It's crazy.
It was a terrible three, man. It was a horrible three. There was a question. I can't find it, so I can't pin it up here. But there was a question about Kristaps and having missing the second half with illness. Sam Hauser spraining his ankle tonight. Are you worried about the Celtics? I mean, Porzingis obviously more important than Sam Hauser, but are you worried about the Celtics going forward in the series and potentially beyond if Sam Hauser's out for an extended period of time, if Kristaps misses a few more games, et cetera, et cetera?
Without Kristaps, just with Horford and, with Pritchard with Pritchard and Cornette, they have enough to win this series. Porzingis, it's apparently a non-COVID illness. A little weird considering he just had some kind of illness,
Yeah.
not even like a week or two ago. But sometimes that shit just kind of stacks up on you, and especially when your immune system's already down for the count. But like Porzingis to me is a guy that like we've just seen too many times over the years. Like, I mean, last year's a perfect example. He like straight up like didn't play in the postseason, and then was like amazing when he stepped on the floor in the NBA Finals.
Yeah.
What that tells me is like Kristaps to me, I actually think Horford is just a substantially more consistent night to night player anyway, and I think he's a substantially better defensive player. Horford is the guy that unlocks a lot of their ability to switch. Obviously Brunson had some success against him, but guys, I promise you Brunson would have had that same success against Porzingis, if not more. He would have been able to beat him off the dribble more. So like to me, like Porzingis is like for this particular team, he's that guy that like can absolutely win you a playoff game. Like if he's having the right kind of night, he can drop 33 beaten switches and hitting above the break threes. But at the same time, he's not necessarily important to like the foundational floor of what the Celtics can be night to night. And so I would be I'm not worried about him in the big picture because he's playing poorly now during a phase where they can afford for him to play poorly. But as long as he plays well in a bigger spot later on against the Cleveland, against the Indiana, against Oklahoma City, I think he'll be fine.
Yeah. I think I agree. I think I agree. I don't know how to feel after that game. It feels kind of like a dumb game where the Celtics are going to win 4 straight after this, and they're just going to start hitting more shots. And it's also very annoying that they're still doing. It felt, there were a lot of jokes for years about the Celtics just being dumb at the end of games and being a really dumb team for a long time. And it felt like all those demons were exercised last year, and now we're here again.
It still occasionally popped up last year, just in shorter stretches. It was like the classic, like fewer and farther between kind of thing.
Yeah.
And I've always felt like this is in there with Boston. It's like it's always like a part of their like personality and who they are as a basketball team. But at the same time, it's just like frustrating. It's still frustrating when it happens, even though it happens very rarely at this point. By the way, guys, like Boston's going to win this series. I don't think the Knicks figured anything out that's going to be actually enough. Like when you watch the tape, Tatum and Brown were legitimately awful off the ball defensively. They were a big part of all the wide open catch and shoot threes they gave up to OG Anunoby and to Mikal Bridges and the stuff on the offensive glass. And like they just weren't good enough. They're going to be way better and they're going to win the series. They can afford these kinds of mistakes here. My thing is like they're very clearly playing with fire in the sense that there are much better teams ahead. Jackson, I don't know about you, but I was never all that high on the Knicks this year. Were you?
Oh no, not at all.
Yeah. Yeah, I didn't think it was I didn't think it was a matchup that the Knicks could win. It's just disappointing. I left that game like just disappointed in Boston.
100%.